Amen. Sorry about that. Has anyone been sick for like 4 months? It's crazy. What's going on? Yeah. Well, that's what you call perspective. That's perspective right there. So it's not so bad. Not so bad after all. Okay, so welcome back to Wednesday nights. Last week was a great time. Right here. Last week was a great time. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. Weren't our guests awesome? They were awesome. And man, just I hope you guys are listening. I know some of you on any given week are not listening, but for the majority of you, I know that you generally are. We are starting a new series, and it is called Potential. So we've kind of been advertising it a little bit, like it's a dating series. It's not a dating series. I know that's what we've been saying. That's kind of a catch-all. But it is a series about relationships. And I know I've said this. It's a series about how relationships can change and ultimately impact your walk with the Lord. And some relationships will do that in a good way, and then some have the potential to do that in a not so good way. So next week, Caitlin is actually going to be teaching, and the title for next week is Don't Make Anyone Your Everything. Sounds saucy, doesn't it? Don't make anyone your everything. Don't do it. Except for Jesus, right? There's the scorecard. And then the week after that, it's called You Owe It to Yourself to Be Honest with Yourself. And we're actually going to talk a little bit about that tonight. That is a huge piece of a relationship. In fact, all of us, this is just a little side note, you know who all of us, without exception in here, are in a relationship with besides Jesus? Yes, it's ourselves. All of us are in a relationship with ourselves. So we have to learn how to treat ourselves. Okay, so you owe it to yourself to be honest with yourself. And then the final installment, 3 weeks from now, don't date in the dark. Don't date, I don't know what that means, but we'll find out in 3 weeks. Don't do anything in the dark. Just get out of the dark. Yeah, come into the light and stay in the light. So that's 3 weeks from now. Out of the dark into the light. But tonight is becoming the right person. Listen up. Shh. Hey, she had to talk to you guys earlier, and I'm having to do it again. Just stop talking. It's so simple. Just don't talk to each other for the next 20 minutes. Very simple. Tonight is about becoming the right person before you find the right person. Or becoming the right person is better, more important than finding the right person. We're going to be working out of the passage of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7. So when we say becoming the right person, more than finding the right person, you just look at this verse and you just read through it and you think, now it would be nice if I could find a person who could love like that. And you just kind of look at the verse and you go, do I have the ability to love like that? You might think, I certainly would like to. And some of us are raised in wonderful homes with parents who do love us. But if you look at that verse, does anybody love you like that? 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7. Let's read it real quick. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, it always perseveres. Now that is what you call an ideal. That would be an ideal love. And I know you students are smart enough. If I was to ask you, who loves like this? Well, the answer is what? It is Christ. And so tonight, when we're going through becoming the right person before finding the right person, essentially what we're saying is becoming more like that, like Christ. And that should scare you, that verse. It does me. When I read that verse, I'm like, you want me to become like that? That's very difficult. I don't know if I can do that. All of us would like to. I don't know if I can. But that's what we're going to talk about tonight. How do we do that? And why do we focus on that? And eventually we might touch on the dating subject. But first, all of us have relationships. And so, all of us start in what's called primary relationships. And a primary relationship is to your parents, first and foremost. You know, your mother is your mother. She takes care of you. She nurtures you. Your father's there. And you relate to them first. You accept love from them first. And if not your mother or your father, your caretaker, your general guardian. But somebody loves you enough to feed you and to shelter you and to clothe you. That's a primary relationship. Now, we also have siblings. They're a primary relationship. So, at some point, you get old enough and you stop relating to only mother and father and you begin to relate to your siblings. Now, these are relationships. These are our first relationships in our lives. After a little bit, you get older, all of you are there, you start having friends. And friends are what's called secondary relationships. They're what's called agents of socialization. And basically, they make you who you are. So your parents and your family have the biggest influence on you as a kid. Then your friends come in. Now your parents' influence is still strong, but your friends become that secondary group. And what comes right after that? For some, maybe not for all of you, maybe not for some of you for a while, but for some, they move from parents to siblings to friends to dating. And then dating begins to influence who you are, or just the thought of maybe dating. The prospect of perhaps dating so-and-so soon, one day. And that begins to influence who you are. And then eventually, for most, but not all, you end up in a marriage of some sort, a spouse. And they ultimately become your primary agent of socialization. The single most important relationship in the world to you aside from the Lord. That ultimately becomes your spouse. So all of us learn how to be in a relationship from these little mile markers here. And it all starts with our parents. And here's the interesting thing about the relationship with our parents, and then particularly the relationship with our friends. Do you know what they show us? They show us what we're going to be like one day when we date. Now, not everybody knows that. Not everybody wants to believe that. And a lot of people don't like to think about that. But that's the truth. So what is your relationship like with your siblings? What is your relationship like with mom and dad? Are you always at odds? Do you have a hard time taking direction? Do you lie? Do you belittle? Do you talk behind their back? Those are indicators of what your relationships, like we looked at that chart earlier, are ultimately going to be like. How we relate to mom, dad, friends, siblings, influence the attitudes that we have going into dating. Okay? And we don't have time to go into it tonight. But they're called attachment styles. So can you think of other relationships in your life? Think about it. I named a few, but there are many, many more. So I listed some up there. Can you guys think of any other ones? These are all relationships in your teenage years where it's like, yeah, I have to learn how to get along with that person. I always struggled with my friends' friends. It's like, I'm friends with you, but not with your friends. Were siblings friends? That was always a weird one. But all of us have to learn how to get along with these people, and how we relate with all these different people has a huge impact on how we navigate those closer relationships later in life. I would say this: we have two ways of learning about relationships. We have, on the one hand, experience. And this is what the world promotes. Go out and experience it for yourself. Go see for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Hey, at some point, you got to think for yourself. So go out and experience. Figure it out. That's what the world says. And the world's not entirely wrong. But that's not what we're advocating tonight. That's not what I'm up here saying tonight. Because you're going to get experience one way or another. The other way is spiritually. And when I say 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7 should make you feel a little weird, it's because it raises the bar so high. So when I say there's a spiritual way, it is through, and get this, only through Christ. Only through Christ. That you get to learn how to relate differently to people. And 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7 gives us a little glimpse into that. Or it should at least. So let's look back at the verse. Chapter 13, 4 through 7. Even for me, and Caitlin and I just celebrated 3 years, it is a sobering verse to read. And this is a very common verse that you'll hear at weddings. People read this at weddings all the time. And they should. You know, these are the ideals. But it's a very sobering verse. Even for me as a husband, and I strive to be a good husband. But let's run through a few of these. So, love is patient. What's the opposite of patience? Impatience. Who in here is impatient? Hello. Yeah. I hate how impatient I am. I do. I have the nerve to lay there in the morning, and Caitlin's up, and she's doing her quiet time, and this is how I wake up. Caitlin!
Yeah, honey?
Babe, will you give me the coffee? 1 second. Kay, the coffee! I'm reading the Bible. That's me. The grumbling bear in the morning. Love is kind. Love is kind. What's the opposite of kindness? Well, yes. Unkind. Hatred, yes. Yes. Unkind. Who in here can be unkind? Who's ever been unkind and impatient? I know. How about this? Envy. Envious. Who's ever envied anything? Oh. Envy. Oh, it is a love killer. It is a relationship killer. Envy. Yet, all of us, if we're being honest, are envious sometimes. We're envious of other people's relationships. We're envious of other people's jobs. We're envious of other people's friends. We're envious of other people's cars, of their athletic abilities, of you name it. We're envious. We can even be envious of our significant others sometimes. I hate to say it, but we can be. I'll just run through. It doesn't boast. It's not proud. It doesn't dishonor. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Who has a list of wrongs that their siblings have done in their head? It's like, they better not, because I got my ace of spades ready. And I would slam it down. I would break this table. I'll slam it down so hard. Okay? So this should make us feel a little weird when we read this. It's like, that's the measure? Yes, that's the measure. And this is why I said what I said about experience, okay? This is why I said that. When you go out and you get experience, and when you go out and you experience the world for yourself, do you know what happens? You hurt people. Not intentionally. Very, very few of us will go out and intentionally hurt somebody. Not physically, but like emotionally, cause them harm. But when an experience is at the forefront of your mind and you go, I want to go figure it out for myself, we're so ill-equipped, we're so inexperienced, we're so immature that we hurt people along the way. That's why I said, I'm not up here advocating for experience tonight. And trust me, I had a lot of experience hurting people. What that also means is that I have a lot of experience being hurt by people. So you get to go out and you get to have your experience. You may have a little fun along the way, but it leaves scars. And scars can scab over, but oftentimes they open back up when you get into a good relationship. They're there. Somebody does something, you get triggered, you start itching it, and before you know it, the wound's gaping again. And you're having to deal with your past experiences. They come back up. Now, when we look at 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7, I see Christ in that. I don't see myself in that. I see my best self in there, but I do see Christ. And I don't see Christ like as he was that one time in that one book. I see Christ's entire life in that verse. I mean, think about Jesus and Peter. Do you think Jesus had to be patient with Peter? Yes. The answer is yes. I mean, we all have a friend that when they start to talk, sometimes we're like, oh, that's Peter, you know? And think about how patient he was. Imagine being Jesus and imagine knowing everything about everyone. Imagine that for a second. Like, y'all think you know everything, but you don't. Now imagine actually knowing everything. Can you begin to grasp the level of patience that it must have took for Jesus just on any given day? Like, he knows, and he's like watching you fool yourself and try to fool him. Think about Judas. We heard this at the Super Summer Exec Retreat this past weekend. You know, Jesus knew that Judas was going to betray him. Did he not? He did. He knew. He knew the whole time. Yet, what did he do? He washed his feet. He didn't wash everybody's feet other than Judas's. That would have been unkind. No, he washed Judas's feet, knowing very well, and this is not original, this is from the speaker at Super Summer, that Judas would walk those feet and turn him in. Isn't that crazy? That's the type of love that we are to model. Selfless love. Sacrificial love. A servant kind of love. That's what we're to model. And the best model for that is Christ. Do I love like this? That's the question. Do I love like this? I do not. I'll just say it. I do not love like that. I want to. And if you can say, I would like to do that too. I would like to one day be able to love like that. Or I would like to at least work towards being able to love like that. If you can say that, I want you to take that thought, set it aside for a minute, and this is where we're going to end tonight. How do I know if I'm ready to date? Ask yourself that. How do I know if I'm ready to date? And there are all sorts of arbitrary things that people say. Rites of passage is what they used to be called. When you get a car, or when you grow a mustache. Guys, not girls. Or when you get a job, or when you start paying the bills around here. Or, I don't know, when you graduate. These are all sorts of arbitrary things. And for some, and this is correct, it's whatever my parents say I can. But even that is a little arbitrary. Don't tell your parents I said that. Because what's it based off of? Their judgment? Newsflash. Parents are great, but they have faulty judgment, just like everybody else. You know? How do I know when I'm ready to date? Well, for me, it was once I was willing to say, you know what, God? I'm going to leave that to you. I have tried the experience route so much. I have caused so much harm to myself and others. And I don't want to do that anymore. So I just took that big question and I just said, there you go. There you go, God. You can handle that, I'm sure. And I walked away. And I didn't think about it. And one of the things, if you were wondering, when will I be ready though? Have you ever heard of the word insight? Insight, I-N-S-I-G-H-T. Insight. I put 3 definitions up there. The capacity to gain an accurate and deep intuitive understanding of a person or a thing. A deep understanding of a person or a thing. Here's the third one. It's a little different, but I think this is the one I like the most. In psychiatry. This is a new understanding gained by a patient who has begun to realize that they have mental health problems. They call that insight in the field of psychiatry. So before a person has insight, they're walking around and maybe they hear voices, maybe they have some chemical imbalances going on. They don't know what's going on. And they sit down, they start meeting with the doc, and the doc says, listen, man, you're exhibiting all the symptoms of, borderline personality disorder. And the person thinks about it, and they look at the chart, they see all the symptoms, they think about times when they've done that, and they go, huh, I guess that's me. And that's called having insight. So, when are you ready to date? Well, I believe that it's when we start to get an insight into our own need for Christ. And I mean an intuitive understanding. Not just, so my mom tells me so. Not just my brother started dating when he was 19, so I think that's what I'm going to. No. No, it's probably a good time to maybe just start thinking about it when you begin to look at the way Christ lived his life and go, there is no way I can do that on my own. And if I take Christ as the model for how to live a holy, righteous life, pleasing to God, if that's what I see when I look at Christ, and I know in my heart of hearts that's how I want to live, but I can't do it yet, as much as I'd like to tell you at 15 years old, I know how to conduct myself in a rational manner, in a relationship with a person, and that I can control my emotional natures, and that I don't get envious when she's talking to him, or when they don't text me back, as much as I'd like to say that that's not me, insight, that's me. And that's a weird feeling. Do you know what that feeling is tinged with? Humility. And you get a really accurate, maybe for the first time, picture of who you are. Not who you want to be, but who you are. And any picture of us, divorced or apart or away from Christ, should feel severely, terribly lacking. And when it does, you have gained an important insight. That's a good day. And I don't have to say as a caveat, and don't go out and go dating the next day. It's not a means to an end, because you won't. Because you'll know, I have nothing to offer in my current state. I got nothing real to offer the way that I am right now. We simply can't measure up. This is how I want to end. How did Caitlin and I meet? We're married. I know for a lot of you in here, I'd like to be married one day. Well, I told you that I gave up the whole pursuit of finding the person, finding the one. I had just quit thinking about it. And it wasn't like I gave it up for a month and then Caitlin came just fluttering into my life one day. And she was like, I love you. That's not what happened. That's not how it worked. Because I had a clearer sense of my inability to govern my life in a manner that I could be proud of, I started taking cues from the Lord. And I did what I felt like God wanted me to do. So with that being said, I was working for this organization. And Caitlin was, of course, working a covenant. And what was she doing the day that I met her? Were we meeting up on a Tinder date? No. Were we at the bar? Nope. Caitlin was serving. She was volunteering her time. She was with Scarlett, actually. And so, I have no clue, but I'm just walking along. We just walked right into each other. And I watched Caitlin interacting with Scarlett, and I just listened to them, and I thought, I like them. They're cool. She's funny. She's smart. She'd be a really good wingman to help me go find a wife. And to be fair, when I was trying to figure out if Caitlin was interested in dating me, her first response was, well, it's not a no. So, basically it was not love at first sight. For either of us. But, something weird happened. And I'll fast forward to after we had gotten engaged. I made a really cool discovery about Caitlin. I was talking to her one day, and I said, honey, guys don't ever start sentences this way. Honey, I want you to take this the right way. Bad idea. Take this the right way. I love you. I mean, I really do love you. But I would be okay without you. She's like, yeah, I feel the exact same about you. And I know that doesn't sound romantic, but do you want to know what's really unromantic? Feeling like if I leave the room for 5 seconds, my wife's going to collapse and melt into a puddle of tears because she doesn't know how to live. And I can only imagine for her what it would be like to think, my husband can't take care of himself because he never learned to. Because when we got together, I believed him when he said, you complete me, babe. And it was so flattering to think I could complete a man like that. It was one of the coolest things that I had ever been told, that she would be okay without me. Do you know why she would be okay without me? Because her relationship with Christ is more important to her than her relationship with me. So I can love Caitlin, and I can want to be around Caitlin, but I don't ever have to worry about Caitlin. Caitlin's going to be fine. Caitlin was fine before I came into the picture. Obviously, we would be sad, and God forbid that ever happened, but we would be fine. Because the most important relationship in her life is her relationship with Christ. And because of that, she knows how to love in a non-possessive, mature, really, really, really deeply fulfilling way. So students, I want you to think about that in this series. What do I have to do to become the best version of myself? And the answer is simple. Pursue Christ first in everything that you do. Give your will, your wants and your desires, and give them over to Him. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all the rest will be given unto thee. Give it all to Him, and you focus on what's really important. And that's Him.